Hello everybody, welcome to this instruction video. In this video I'd like to show you how to make week 8 of the Crochet Along Last Dance on the Beach by Scheepjes. This square has been designed by Jelina from Jelina's Creations and of course in loving memory of Marinka. Please check your pattern exactly which yarn colors you need for this week if you're using the Color Crafter or the Merino soft yarn, because it's always important that you use the correct color. Regarding hook sizes, I did my gauge swatch with a 4mm for the Color Crafter, but I actually decided to go up half a millimeter on this week's square. So I worked my Color Crafter with a 4.5mm hook, because I found that way my square was just a little bit more relaxed and just fit my gauge swatch better. And same for the Merino soft, I went from a 4.5 to a 5mm hook, so I went up one hook size, 0.5mm. But maybe your swatch, we worked it in a different hook size altogether, or maybe you don't find that you need this extra hook size for this week, because I know some of the testers also worked this square in the same needle as they did their gauge swatch. So again, this is all personal and depends on your own style of crochet, but I chose to go up one hook size. I'll take you step by step through the rows making up this square. It's actually a very relaxing square that I really enjoyed making, and I hope you do too. With a slip knot on my hook, I'm going to chain 30. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 30 chain stitches. We're now going to go back, skip the first 2 chains, and in the third chain stitch from the hook I'm going to work a treble, and you're going to work a treble in every chain stitch. It's going to give you 28 trebles in total. This is number 3. And continue and work a treble on every stitch. And on your last 2 stitches, of course, you still need to work a treble on each, and then you've done 28 trebles for row 1. Row 2, start with a chain 2. Now this chain 2 does not count for a stitch, so it's just to turn. We're going to start by making a treble. We're going to make a front post treble around the first stitch, and then make 2 trebles in the next 2 stitches. So the first stitch we're going to do a front post, and then to do 2 regular stitches, and this you're going to repeat the entire row. So our first stitch, we're going to do a front post treble, so it's around the post from the front, work a treble, and then on your next 2 stitches work a regular treble. And also make sure that you're going to your next stitch, that's your next stitch, not this one here, because that's actually part of the stitch where you just work the treble on. So make sure you go to the next stitch and work a treble, and also on the next. So you're working 2 trebles, so you've worked a front post and 2 regular trebles, and this you're going to repeat the entire row. So our next stitch is again a front post treble, so around the post, and then go to your next 2 stitches. Those are those 2, because remember the stitch here to the back, that's where you just work the front post treble on, so you're going to go to your next stitch. So this is very similar to what we've done in week 3, where you would work a front post stitch and then skip the stitch that's to the back. You'd really go to the next actual stitch. You're doing the same concept here. So front post treble, and then in the next stitch work a regular treble, and also in the next. You can see how you're building this little bridge here. you've got this ridge and then a bit to the back and to the front to the back. So the next stitch is again a front post, and then you work 2 normal trebles again. You continue like this to the end of the row. So a front post stitch, and then 2 normal trebles, and 2. At this point you should have 1 stitch left. That's this stitch here. We're going to work a treble, a front post treble around this stitch. Like so. And the chain 2 that you still have here, that chain 2 there, you're going to leave that. You're not going to do anything with that. So that completes row 2. This is our first row. I just want to compare it to our gauge swatch, so how we are for size. This is my gauge swatch. I'm just going to put it on here and check for width. Just put it on inside of your edge, and if you put it on here, you'll have the feeling that it's actually a little bit too big. It looks like it's really on the edge here, maybe even a little bit over. Don't worry about this, because this square is going to shrink as it gets bigger. These waffle stitches really tend to pull everything in a little bit, and you're really going to have to stretch it out when you block this square also. So I'm actually rather happy with this. This is going to be just fine width wise. We'll also keep checking on height when it's a little bit bigger. Row 3, chain 2, turn your work, and again that chain 2 doesn't count as a stitch. So in the very first stitch, that's going to be this stitch here, we're going to work a treble, because this is our first position, because the chain 2 doesn't count as a stitch. Then on the next 2 stitches, that's going to be these 2 here, we're going to work a treble on each. So 1 and 2. Sorry, a front post treble on those 2. So, and this little unit you're going to repeat until you get to the end again. So the next stitch is a treble, a regular treble, and your next 2 stitches are 2 front post trebles again. In this rhythm you're going to continue until, oh wait, that didn't go right, the entire stitch, there we go. And this you're going to continue until you get to the other side. So it's a treble in a stitch, and then 2 front post trebles around the next 2 stitches. And these 2 front posts are what's going to make the nice edge on the other side, because if you look here, you see that that little edge that you're making there is part of the waffle stitch. That's this back post, or sorry, these front post trebles you're making here is causing that little edge there. So it's 1 treble and 2 front post trebles. Continue this until you get to the end. 1 more repeat till the end. There's a normal treble and 2 front post trebles. And 2. You have 1 stitch left, so that's this stitch here. You're going to work a treble in that stitch. And the chain 2, that's still here also. You see that chain 2 there, you're just going to ignore that, don't worry about that. So that completes row 3. So row 2 and 3 that you've just done, you're basically going to keep on repeating this 7 more times until you have 18 rows in total. So 2 and 3, I'm going to show them to you 1 more time, but in essence you're just going to keep on repeating these until you've done 18 rows. So row 4, chain 2, turn your work, And row 4 is in essence the same as row 2. So you start with a front post treble around the first stitch. So it's going to be this one here, the very first stitch. You do a front post, followed by 2 trebles on the next 2 stitches. So that's going to be these 2 here. And this little unit you're now going to repeat until you get to the end. So again, a front post, and 2 regular trebles. Yes, there we go. A front post again, and 2 normal trebles on the next 2 stitches. You continue this until you get to the end. So front post and 2 trebles. One more repeat to the end. So that's a front post treble and 2 normal trebles. 2, and here you have on your last stitch, it's going to be this one, you work a front post treble, and that completes row 4. And now I'm going to show you the row 5 again, and then I'll make a jump in the video. Row 5, chain 2, turn your work, and row 5 is of course also again the same as row 3. On your first stitch, it's going to be that stitch there, we work a treble, and on the next 2 stitches, those 2 stitches, we work a front post treble. It's 1 and 2. And this little unit you're now going to repeat until you get to the other side. So that's a treble on the next stitch, and on these 2 you make a front post treble. And again, this is a rhythm that you're going to find in this pattern by repeating row 2 and 3. That you can really get into that rhythm, and that this is something that you can easily do in front of the television and actually watch TV while you crochet. So some patterns you can't watch TV while you crochet, because then you are really going to make mistakes. But this pattern is forgiving enough that you can actually do that. That there's a great rhythm in this pattern. So 2 front posts and then a normal one. And if you do the other row, it's exactly the other way around. Last repeat on this side. So it was a treble and then 2 front post trebles, like so. You have 1 stitch left, it's that stitch over there, and you're going to work a treble into this stitch, like so. And that completes row 5, which is the same as row 3, of course. So this is what we've made at the moment. Repeat rows 2 and 3. I've now done this one more repeat. Repeat 6 more times until you have 18 rows in total on your square, and then we're ready to make the border. I'm roughly halfway now. Just want to check how I am with my gauge swatch. So I'm just going to put the square on top of that, like so. And what you'll notice is that you're not as close to the edge as you used to be when we were right here down here. It's because the square does shrink a little bit, but it is very easy to just pull that out. And so with blocking, you'll also be able to really get it back to its correct size. And also height-wise, I'm really happy with it. I'm just over halfway now, so that's good. But also in the height direction, there is quite some stretch in here, so you can definitely, if it is just a little bit too small, you can definitely stretch it during blocking. So I'm happy with this, so I'm just going to finish all the repeats and then we can do the edge. When you've done all your repeats, you're going to be finishing on a row 2, so don't continue until you've done row 3. So you're finishing on a row 2, and now we're doing the edge. So you've done 18 rows, finishing on row 2. For the edge, do a chain 1. This chain does not count as a stitch, and now we're going to work a half double, 26 half doubles along the edge, and you're going to try to get them as evenly spread as possible. And this is a little fudge work. 2. I'm also going to use the chain 2 spaces here to work into. 3, 4, there's a chain 2 space there. Do that as 5. You can eyeball your stitches where is the best place to put them, and sometimes you work 1 stitch in a space, sometimes you work 2. You work 26 double crochets all the way around, so try to spread them a little bit evenly, and when you get to a corner you work 3 double crochets and then again 26 on the next stitch. In the center, mark your stitch and go all the way around. When you're done, you will have to do some serious blocking on this thing, because the square has to, in my experience at least, really pulled together. You really need to pull it apart again. So I'm going to continue and make the border. So this is what your square looks like. Take a moment to block this square because it's a little bit, the edges aren't straight. When you've blocked your square, this is what it looks like. It's just a bit more crisp and flat. Also, if it's not the right size, this is very easy to just stretch in all directions and just get the size that you need. So this is my color crafted square and my merino soft squares. I really enjoyed making this square. It's also a great pattern that you can do in front of the TV because it doesn't require an awful lot of attention, because there's a great rhythm to the stitches. So make 4 of these and then you're finished with this week, and I hope to see you again next week.